Hey guys, this is XYSTON. Hello and welcome to another video. Today we will be considering two post-Imperial superweapons as the Eclipse Class Super Star Destroyer from Star Wars Legends faces off against Star Wars canon's Xyston Class Star Destroyer. Now, of course, because we're discussing the Xyston, there will be some spoilers for the Rise of Skywalker, so click away if you haven't watched the movie, or just prepare to be spoiled. So in this video, we will be comparing the two ships not only in a head-to-head matchup, i.e. which of the two would win in a direct battle, but also which is better overall at performing its purpose. With that being said, let's take a brief look at the two ships. We'll start off with the Eclipse class. The Eclipse Class Super Star Destroyer was the ultimate flagship of Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars Legends. Two versions of the ship, the Eclipse 1 and the Eclipse 2, which you see on screen, led the Dark Empire as they sought to reconquer the galaxy. One of the major differences between the Eclipse and the Xyston was scale. While the Xyston was slightly bigger than an Imperial Star Destroyer, the Eclipse was far more massive than even the Executor class, though slightly shorter. It was armed with hundreds of turbo lasers, gravity well generators so enemies couldn't jump from battle, and most impressively, an axial super laser. The super laser couldn't match something like the Death Star in destructive potential. While that had 8 tributary beams, the Eclipse only had 1, however that one was highly modified to make it much more powerful. Still, the Death Star at 2% power was able to easily destroy a rebel Lucrehulk, so we're still dealing with incredible amounts of power. One of the weaknesses of the super laser compared to the Xyston specifically is that the entire ship needs to be moved to re-aim the super laser, which would be difficult especially considering its mass. However, one of the Eclipse's other major assets was just the technology used to create the Dreadnought. Basically, every weapon used by the Dark Empire far surpassed those of the New Republic. The computer systems were more advanced, the shielding was almost impossible to penetrate, the weapons were more powerful, and I don't think it would have been possible for the New Republic to take out the Super Dreadnought in a straight-up battle. What's more, the Eclipse was envisioned as not only a dreadnought to rule the galaxy, but one to conquer others. Palpatine's ultimate goal was control of the entire universe, and he hand-designed the Eclipse to accomplish that goal, which I think is fairly telling. Next up, we have the Xyston Class Star Destroyer, the new ship produced in perhaps thousands for the Sith Eternal, or the Final Order, or whoever. We know far less about the Xyston, obviously, however the visual dictionary for the movie does give us some information. It tells us that the Xyston not only has, of course, powerful first strike capabilities, but at 2,400 meters and based off the design of the Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer, is a powerful capital ship in its own right. Still, its firepower directly pales in comparison to the Eclipse class Dreadnought, being probably 1/10 as well armed with conventional weapons. The same is true, of course, for fighter complement, and while I assume, based on its galaxy traveling function, that the Eclipse has some onboard factories and some automated processes, I doubt the same is true for the Xyston. Still, the main feature here is the axial super laser. While the gun on the Eclipse is said to be able to crack continents and even seriously damage a planet, we see in episode 9 that the gun on the Xyston is able to destroy one completely. Based on my reading of the lore, here's what it seems like the difference is. The Eclipse class Super Star Destroyer seems to output a tremendous amount of energy at once in form of the super laser. Basically, lots of power is generated, it fires off, and the Eclipse can function normally aside from that. The Xyston, on the other hand, seems to tap directly into all of the power reserves of a Star Destroyer of that size, basically shunting it directly into a weapon. This is how I've sort of explained it to myself. If there's a large bucket of water, the Eclipse is basically attaching a hose to it and firing off continual bursts. On the other hand, the Xyston is slowly turning it over and pouring it all out. It seems like it takes some time to actually destroy Kijimi. The weapon fires on the planet and sort of continually pulses. To me, that's sort of like if a Star Destroyer took every single one of its weapons and continually fired on the planet, at least a hyper-modern Star Destroyer like the Xyston. That's also why destroying the gun can destroy the ship itself, because it feeds directly into the main reactor. Moving directly now into my ship versus, the point I'm getting at here is I'm not sure whether the Xyston is actually more powerful than the Eclipse. I think with several shots, the Eclipse could probably break planet just like the Xyston did, and I think the new Sith Star Destroyer would not be able to, for example, pierce a planetary shield. However, does that matter when it comes to a head-to-head battle? Well, I think that's an interesting discussion. The Xyston has some advantages. First of all, it's far more mobile than the Eclipse. However, its weapon doesn't really take full advantage of that, because if you watch the movie, it seems like the super laser can move up and down, but not rotate. It's sort of fixed within like a hinge joint, while the Eclipse, of course, is only able to shoot targets right in front of it. So with the Eclipse, the vessel is so much larger that I find it hard to believe that the super laser can't output as much power, at least briefly. So I think in a head-to-head matchup, the Xyston just gets obliterated. It's going to need time firing its super laser to actually take down the Eclipse. However, it just won't be able to do so, because the deadliest part to be when facing that Star Destroyer is, well, right in front of it. The Eclipse is also far more conventionally well armed, and especially when considering the Xyston's weak point, should easily be able to destroy the smaller ship with just conventional turbo lasers. So, as the size would suggest, in a straight head-to-head match, I think the Eclipse is obviously the winner, and unless I'm discounting the super laser, I don't see any way that changes. For all of those reasons, as well as the galaxy-conquering potential of the Eclipse, that ship is obviously best as a flagship. However, it might be better to have instead something like 6 to 10 Xystons, because they do also show planet-destroying power, and they're just incredibly intimidating, basically taking the Imperial Star Destroyer, one of the most frightening and powerful ships of all time, design issues notwithstanding, and making it larger. As I said, I do think the Eclipse, with the same amount of time, could match the destructive output. It's just a different means of firing, if that makes sense. However, I will admit that is a large assumption on which I've based a lot of my analysis, but I do think it's held up by the visual dictionary. I will say overall, I do think the Xyston class gives the ISD, or certainly the power capabilities of the ISD, quite a boost. The ship is slightly larger, but proportionally, the power generation seems to be the same. It doesn't have larger reactor bulbs, there's no other reactor. So I think this shows just how powerful a Star Destroyer can be if it dedicates all of its energy to its guns. So just to summarize, I think the Eclipse is a better flagship. It would beat the Xyston in a head-to-head battle. I think it's a very intimidating ship, and I think its galaxy-conquering capabilities cannot be ignored. However, a fleet of Xystons, almost like Palpatine envisioned with the Sovereign class, would be unbeatable in its own right, and the Resistance should be very grateful that the galaxy decided to help them out and destroy them. But that's all I have for today. However, before I go, I will take a second to answer a hashtag AskEck question. Today's comes from Andreas, who asks, what happened to the First Order after the fall of the Final Order and the Sith Eternal, as we see, of course, at the end of episode 9. So I think the movie is meant to imply that there's a galaxy-wide uprising against the Sith and the First Order. We know most of the Sith fleet was destroyed at Exegol, presumably besides for that one Star Destroyer that blew up Kajimi, and we do also see Resurgence being destroyed, so it seems like there was a massive uprising. Will all of the First Order fleet be destroyed? Well, I'm not sure, probably not. I mean, certainly there would at least be troopers elsewhere, but it seems like the galaxy has united in a war against evil. I wonder whether there will be a sort of First Order remnant like there was with the Empire after Endor, whether they've been cleaned up a little more neatly, but overall it's sort of an iffy bit of world building, and I'll be interested to see how the post-trilogy expanded universe will deal with that. Anyway guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider dropping a like, leaving a comment, subscribing, and turning notification bells on so you never miss a video. If you'd like me to answer a question like I just did at the end, make sure to leave it down below with the hashtag AskEck. Anyway guys, until next time, have a great one. I will be streaming on my second channel, X2, links as always in the description, but until I see ya, have a great day, and may the Force be with you.